Russian President Vladimir Putin has arrived in China for what the Kremlin is calling a truly unprecedented visit, lasting nearly a week. His trip coincides with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit and includes bilateral talks with President Xi Jinping, as well as Beijing's Victory Day parade, marking 80 years since Japan's defeat in World War II. At the top of this agenda is the war in Ukraine, with both leaders expected to align their positions as the U.S. pushes for a resolution. Analysts say Moscow is looking for assurances on China's support, including energy, trade, and economic ties. The visit also carries strong symbolism, underscoring Beijing and Moscow's deepening partnership at a time of strained relations with the West. Meanwhile, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has said that President Putin has already held long talks with Armenian Prime Minister Pashinyan and President Xi and Kazakhstan's President Tokayev. A meeting with Azerbaijan's President Aliyev could take place tomorrow. Now, for this discussion, we're joined by Keith Bass. He's a former UK minister, joins us live from North Africa, and Andrew K.P. Long. He's a China strategist, joins us live from London. Thank you both for joining us today. I would first like to go to Keith. Keith, how should we interpret the President Putin's extended visit to China during this summit? Does this reflect a deepening alliance, or do you think this is a strategic necessity for Moscow? Keith?
Good afternoon from North Africa. Okay. I think this is a very important moment in world affairs when you have three very important leaders getting together, not under the auspices of the United States or the EU, but in their own hemisphere, talking about cooperation, talking about trade, and renewing friendships. I think it's common knowledge that these three, over the last decade or so, have not been the best of friends. But it's taken, I suppose, Donald Trump to bring everyone together. It's the way in which Mr. Trump has organized his diplomacy that's regarded as such a different approach to the previous presidents, to all previous presidents, and as a result of which these three leaders have decided they've got more in common with each other than they have in common with Donald Trump. So this is a big moment, and it's good to see this kind of dialogue, especially between India and China, the two world superpowers who've not been really getting on for a variety of reasons, but now they're together. Russia and China also have had their moments, but now for the first time they are all together. So one should prepare oneself for the fact that Washington will have a story ready of some sort or another to try and take the lines away from this amazingly historic meeting. I can't think what it is, but Trump, as we know, those of us who study Trump, loves to control the news cycle, at the beginning of the cycle and at the end. There are many books on this. So knowing this is happening there, and you've got these three giants meeting in Shanghai, Trump will make an announcement of some kind that's going to try and steal the headlines. It's inevitable, I'm afraid, especially after a week when he's been slapped down by the courts in the United States, and he's been told that he's exceeded his executive power, and therefore the whole tariff issue has got to go to the Supreme Court. But I think we should all welcome the fact that people are talking together. It's one than the big three, if you like. It includes Turkey and other countries. And I think that's very important for that hemisphere. Not everything should emanate from Washington and from Brussels. That there is life outside. And this is that these three leaders are meeting together and are having a proper and appropriate discussion. What happens at the end, I don't know. I don't know whether a communique has been agreed. Having attended many of these summits, of course, there's always a communique before you land. I'm not sure whether the ministers of foreign affairs have got a communique, but I wouldn't mind if there wasn't one, apart from the three of them shaking hands with each other, buddy-like, and that will drive the rest of the world completely insane, especially those in Washington.
Right. Thank you, Keith, for sharing that. Now, Andrea, I would like to come to you for my next question. What concrete outcomes might Russia expect from its energy and economic discussions with China during this visit? Could increased reliance on China risk creating an imbalance in this relationship?
Well, let's be real. I mean, there are still huge differences between China and India, and these differences are unlikely to disappear. As some of my Indian colleagues were saying, there's a mountain of differences between the two. Not least, of course, is the border disputes, which have been lasting for decades, if not more. And there is, of course, rivalry between India and China. But as for China and Russia, it harks back to a seminal book by Brzezinski in 1997. He wrote a book called The Grand Chessboard. On page 55, don't forget it's 1997, it's many years ago, he did warn that the greatest threat to American dominance would be if the countries like Iran, Russia, and China are grouping together. Now these three countries are being pushed together, not so much as pulled together, by Trump's American first hegemony and coercion. And this hegemony and coercion and bullying tactics are applying not only against China and Russia, perceived as the existential threat to American dominance, but to Americans' long-time allies. The transatlantic relationship, for example, is now fracturing. The European countries, regarding normally relying on American as a reliable ally, are now being rattled, by all these indiscriminate tariffs, and even Canada, North of America. So I think that this is a disruption of the whole world order, affecting both allies and countries around the world, not least the developing world in the global south, provides a kind of dynamics for countries in the global south to rally together, not so much to form a bloc against the United States, because no country wants to be an enemy of the United States, not least China or India. But it provides an opportunity for countries in the global south to recalibrate their relationship with the most powerful country at the moment, of course, the United States, with its unilateralism. As I said, not to form a bloc, but how to navigate the treacherous waters and also recalibrate the relationships with one another between China and India, between other countries in the global south. And the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is very different from what it was when it was first formed. Of course, it was led by China, Russia, and consisting only of the landlocked Central Asian countries. Now they are now including observer state members or dialogue members, including countries in the Middle Corridor. The Middle Corridor, of course, I'm talking about Azerbaijan and Armenia, and that's the corridor which links China with the through Central Asia to the rest of Europe, bypassing some of the trouble spots in Russia. And it's a very important conduit because it connects the Central Asia countries beyond with China and Asia. And of course, it will include, as my colleague was saying, countries like Turkey and Egypt, but above all the chief players in the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and Kuwait, and additional countries in Asia, including Cambodia. So you can see that all the key players are now grouping together, and only recently, during the past couple of years, to make the Shanghai Cooperation a much more influential organization. As I said, not to form a bloc, because the idea of bloc doesn't work anymore. And there's also rivalry and confrontation between these various differences between these countries. But again, opportunity to discuss and how to navigate this very changed world order, pivoting towards a more peaceful, a more prosperous, a more cooperative kind of international environment.
Right. Thank you very much, Andrew, for and Keith both for joining us and sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic. Now, the 2025 Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit